Alrighty, I'd like to call the public session to order, and I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we're meeting on the digital lands of First Nations and has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, I acknowledge the history, spirituality, and culture of the territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of Three Fires, known as the Ojibwe, Adawa, and the Potawatomi Nation, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this area, as well as the contribution of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples whose ancestors shared these lands and waters. May we live with respect for each other on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Miigwech. Prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed sessions to review and discuss matters that in their opinion fell under Section 44 of the Community Safety and Policing Act and Section 25, Item B of the Owen Sound Police Services Board General Policy 0003, Board Governance. At this time, I'd like to welcome our newest board member, Carol Merton, as council's appointment to the Owen Sound Police Services Board. Welcome, Carol. And I'd also like to acknowledge Hank Zaire, who's our representative from the ministry. Welcome, Hank. This is your first meeting, I think, so hopefully you'll be back for more. We won't chase your way on this one too much. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? I have one more item I'd like to add under new business item J, which is possible change to the date of our April meeting. With that addition and agreement from the board, I call for a motion for that. Bev, thank you. Brian, thank you. All in favor? Declaration of conflict of interest arising from the minutes and matters listed on the agenda. Hearing none. Presentations, deputations, and public question period. We have no presentations for this meeting. Confirmation of the minutes of the public session held January 22nd, 2025. Brian? Thank you. Motion, Bev, thank you. All in favor? Carrie? Pardon me. Is there any business arising out of the public session minutes from January 22nd? Correspondence received. There's one letter from True North in your package. I think Craig contacted the author of this letter and probably give a high-level overview of the outcome.
Yes, so I spoke to the individual just after receiving the letter, and we had a good conversation about how to move forward and the fact that until it becomes something that we're aware of, and despite the fact that the individual claimed that he attempted multiple times to report these issues to law enforcement, and came down to the fact that it wasn't being reported. And so after our conversation and some discussion around the issues and the concerns, it was made arrangements that you contact our core officer and that we would get some opportunities to act on their behalf, the Trespass to Properties Act. And since that time, and he was very thankful for our conversation and for sending the officer around. And since that time, I've received a follow-up thanking us for the good work and the fact that there hasn't been any issues.
And is this option available to all businesses, or
yes, absolutely. If they have concerns or issues, they can reach out, contact the police, or officers working in the downtown area can meet with them. They can assist with a number of different items, including crime prevention through environmental design and working with them on crime prevention and target hardening. And as well, they can provide us with trespass authority and the Trespass Property Act, and we can act on their behalf if they're not present.
So it was a good outcome for the business owner. Any questions, comments from the rest of the board on that? All right, moving on to the chairman's report, just a couple of upcoming meetings that I have. Tomorrow I meet at 6 o'clock with the Ontario Police Services Board in the directors meeting, and I'll give a report on that at our March meeting. Tuesday, March 11, there's an OAP at the Zone 5 meeting, and it's being held via Zoom. And I'm just wondering, did everyone get an email announcing that from Joanne Fields? You may not have been on the list, but Brian, did you get that? Bev, did you get that list?
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
I can make sure that you get that. If you'd like to participate in that Zoom call, normally what we would do is we would come to the station. If Greg agrees to that, and we would participate in the Zoom call here. It makes it a little difficult, right? Because the second half of the meeting, they have to go into the chief's portion of the meeting. But Craig accommodating that he finds another computer someplace and do that. So if you'd like to attend, if you can let Kayla or myself know, and then we can make arrangements for the number of bodies. Normally just a assign zone 5 meetings, and this is for Carol or something. In inclement weather or bad weathers, shoulder season, we normally have them by Zoom. We usually have the spring and fall meeting in person, and it's hosted somewhere within zone 5. I think the last one was Guelph that we there. Moving on to 2025 AGM and Spring Conference is coming up on June 3rd through the 5th in London. If anyone would like to attend, please contact Kayla or myself. We can arrange arrangements for accommodations, and if there's a bunch of us going down, we can share the ride down as well. Under governance, recently there's been some misinformation circulating regarding the Owen Sound transportation bylaw. Some of that misinformation includes the bylaw doesn't provide for rideshare licensing such as Uber or Lyft. In actual fact, the bylaw was updated in May of 2020, almost 5 years ago, to incorporate the licensing of rideshare options. The other item circulating was the City of Owen Sound was not willing to hear the Chamber of Commerce or taxi operators about changes they would like to see to the bylaw. The Owen Sound Transportation Bylaw, which covers taxis operators, is administered by the Owen Sound Police Services Board. And I said services, didn't I? And Service Board. And any discussion should be directed to this board, which the city quite rightly did. In actual fact, the police board met with the chamber and taxi operator at a meeting in November of 2023. And coming out of that meeting, changes were made to increase the rates for taxi operators, and a reduction in licensing fees was made in February of 2024. Also, a question was asked, why does the police board administer the Owen Sound Transportation Bylaw, which covers taxis? One response I heard was because it's covered under the Police Act, which is not true. Just for clarification, if one looks at the recitals in the bylaw, which is publicly available on our website, it states that Section 151 and Section 156 of the Municipal Act authorize the municipality to pass bylaws for licensing, regulating government owners and drivers of taxi cabs and other vehicles used for hire, including rates, fares to be charged. The Act goes on to say that under Section 23.1 and Section 23.2, a municipality may delegate its powers and duties. As such, the Corporation of the City of Owen Sound passed bylaw number 1996-153 that delegates such licensing power to the Owen Sound Police Service Board. That bylaw number would indicate that the bylaw has been around since 1996. So I just thought I'd clarify that. And if there's any questions or comments, I'm prepared to take those now, but there had been some misinformation. I wanted to clarify it for everybody, especially in this open session. Bev, any comments?
There, sorry, I'm on mute there.
Oh,
But great
all right.
information, because again, we are sort of making certain that we get that kind of a message out to the public. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, sorry.
So since 1996, the responsibility for taxi licensing is through the Police Services Board.
Yeah.
Not police services.
That's all right.
No.
We're all getting used to it.
What was the rationale for that to happen? And is it time to have that rationale revisited?
That was before my time and above my pay grade. You're with council, you tell me. Yeah, same way on.
Ditto back at you.
I can comment that it was well before my time as well. Jeff would be the only one that would be here, but he wouldn't have been in a position, I'm sure that he was involved in that decision at the time, but. At the time, a number of police services boards looked after transportation bylaws. I don't know, and having spoken with Hank's predecessor before Hank came in on the scene as well, I believe we're the only ones that are still looking after taxi bylaws. I'm aware of.
This is the first one I've heard is fine.
Yeah, and so it may very well be, and as mentioned, as I mentioned in the past, it may be very well time to re-examine whether or not they need to deal with the administer the bylaw for taxis.
So do you require a
Crazy.
motion that brought forward?
To review it.
Or can that just be a directive to, as a request to have it reviewed?
I believe it would be a city motion.
You-
The city is the one who's delegated.
Yeah, City would have to look at it.
Whether that delegation should continue.
Yeah, because it's under the municipal act, so they initiated the bylaw. So
Thank you for the clarification.
there maybe things you may not want to add.
Just a question about workload then. Is it a significant workload, this delegation task?
No, it's not a significant workload, and there may be, I mean, at present, there's somebody who looks after that. But sure, we have plenty of work for other people, for the other people to do and take on if there are an issue. So if it freed up some staff coming our end. Disclosure issues and things that can certainly be used to cover that time.
Yeah, I think before we move forward with anything like that, we'd need to consider the current staff that are doing that. And what would be the implications, and would it be possible, and would there be a timing phase in, phase out for that? So I wouldn't say that it would be imminent.
But you still have to get the ball rolling if you want to see if there's an appetite.
Yeah, I think it needs to.
Like, I mean, on the council side.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some private discussions held as to how that would be implemented, and from council side and from the service side as well. Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on. Under governance, Hank, did you have anything from the inspector? Nothing at all, okay. Moving on to reports from Inspector Bishop.
Thank you, Chair. Just for Councilor Merton, the inspectors always report just on operational matters that have happened over the last month, different recurring reports. First one I'll start with is the Criminal Investigations Branch and Drug Enforcement. Longstanding item that has been on here is 3 homicides that occurred over 6 weeks in the 2023. Very lengthy investigations, and they will continue to be a substantial draw on staffing as time goes on, as we start getting into the court period that's going to happen from them. So we have now got some tentative trial dates set for our first homicide of that series that are now dated through May through September of this year. There's also a preliminary hearing started on the second one, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen with that. And we are often asked about the status of the third homicide, which is the Raman matter in relation to the media release that we put out. There are 3 individuals awaiting extradition in the UK and working through that process. We don't, it's not our process, so we don't get a lot of information other than the next dates that they're appearing and that sort of thing. But so there's more dates set in March. We're not sure if that's a final decision or we just essentially get updates from the UK, but it's not a process that we are involved in. It's their process. So we essentially just get the results or whenever the dates are being put over to. So that's the next update on that one. Criminal Investigations Branch worked on a sexual assault in late January with a 28-year-old female. Still ongoing. There was a request to assist the London Police Service with some child interviews that were done by Sean Martin, and Deputy Constable Reed's been working on a drug investigation for search warrant. In terms of the assistance in uniform, there was a second lengthy call, 27-year-old male lives in Grey County Housing. It attempted to barricade himself inside the room and took some time to get him negotiated out of there. Rather tragic sudden death on January 3rd, 17-year-old found deceased in a local motel room, but essentially for some period of time it turned out to be medical and brain aneurysms. Foul play suspected in that one. And both CIB and our mobile mental health unit were involved in a case with a 71-year-old female who'd been assaulted by a boarder in her residence. So 54-year-old male charged. The residence itself was uninhabitable based on condition. So mental health has been assisting with and victim services with that case as well. Remainder of the report just talks to training meetings and other things that they've been doing. And the last thing that I report on usually in this report is our drug overdose information. Glad to report that January 2025, we had 0 drug-related deaths, which is unusual for us. We ended last year in a tie with our worst year, which was our COVID year in 2021 with 14 deaths here. One sound from suspected drug overdoses. So hopefully we continue on with that trend this year. If there's no questions, I'll move on to the auxiliary report. So our auxiliary unit, 126 hours of volunteer time. It's actually down a little bit, and part of the explanations everybody is aware. We had multiple days of heavy snowfall that ended up shutting down a lot of our roads and highways, and a number of our auxiliaries live outside of town. There were no community events, but coldest night of the year fundraiser. Chief, did that end up going forward? Okay. We've received another resignation from auxiliary member Amber Wilson, so our total auxiliary number is down to 13. We usually maintain a complement of around 18. We are posted for an intake that we hope to be training in May, and ready to go for June, which gets into the bulk of our community event. So our core unit, community oriented response and enforcement unit, we still remain understaffed there, just in relation to our staffing. Our core unit is where we end up having to draw from. That's our active unit. We're going to keep our frontline uniform numbers up. We're hoping to get back there through the hiring process, but we have one officer currently working for 49 hours of foot patrol and made a number of charges. The remainder of the report just speaks to their activities for the month. More questions on 4. But work for me is our bail compliance and warrant apprehension. So sorry, Councillor Merton. So our core unit and our bail compliance unit are both funded by grants that come from. Core unit is just ending in about a month. It's a 3-year grant, so we're waiting to see what's going to happen or what's going to replace that. And our bail compliance and warrant apprehension is 1 year into a 3-year grant. So technically there should be 2 members assigned in that area as well. We have 1 member there right now. So again, we report on their activities, 28 criminal charges, 6 hours of foot patrol, a number of warrant arrests. That report speaks to their engagement with the community. So our officer completed more than 100 investigations, which led to 28 criminal charges. The bulk of their charges are related to fail to comply with release orders, undertakings, probation, and cognizance, because they deal with the bail compliance, which is people that have been released from custody on terms or outstanding warrants. That's primarily their role in a proactive capacity. So, there's no questions. That's the bail compliance report.
All right, no questions, then moving on to reports from Inspector Flynn.
Thank you. I'll start with frontline patrol and collision statistics. In January, our frontline officers had 81 highway traffic act charges, 37 cautions, 3 LLA charges, 130 criminal code charges, 65 POA or bylaw tickets. Those would be mostly in regard to the winter parking bylaw, and 89 hours of foot patrol. For the ride program, we had 11 on-duty ride checks during the month with 198 drivers checked. We had 3 grant-funded ride programs with 600 drivers checked. 44 roadside breath tests were administered, 21 HTA charges or warnings issued, and during the month, we had 4 impaired driving charges that were laid. No questions. Collisions were way up for January, double what they were in December, and substantially over the same time last year. And due to all the awful weather that we've had and snow, 76 collisions with 39 on the east side, 18 on the west side, and 19 in parking lots. There were 7 fail to remain collisions. And of the collisions, 34 were handled by our collision reporting center and 42 by our officers on the road. Questions? I'll move on to lost hours training. 15 members during the month reported sick or injured for a total of 252 hours. That's down substantially over the previous month and also down over the same time last year. 2 members on WSID for a total of 378 hours. Training. We had 1 recruit start their basic constable training at police college. All of our officers completed their annual winter block training, which included defense tactics training. We had 2 officers attend the Intoxilizer 9000 course. Our forensic identification officer took the scenes of crime officer training course at the police college, so they will be able to train other officers in our service on scenes of crime officer training, which is kind of a lower forensic examination course, so that they can respond to routine calls, attend break and enters, etc., do the forensic work. 1 member attended the advanced CPIC query course, and 1 member went to South Simcoe and took the criminal investigation techniques course. That's all for lost hours in training.
Any questions for Inspector Flynn? Right, next item on the agenda isn't actually listed here, but our favorite time of the day is reach.
I've got
Oh,
one.
oh, I've only got lost hours of training. Sorry, my
That's
mistake.
okay. Community services. So Jason was again busy during the month. Jason handles a lot of the social media posting that goes on that we have, and the biggest thing that he's been putting out, there was things they put out highlighting our 4 new special constables that we had, some winter driving tips and safety issues, but also what we're constantly getting out there is that the police service is hiring. Right now we're hiring for several positions, including constable. We put out the ad for special constables and also auxiliary members. So we're constantly getting the message out that we're recruiting people for the service. He had a presentation with Probus on community safety and online safety. He's at Notre Dame School for a presentation on social media and internet safety. And he attended a meeting on CamSafe, which is a program. He got the information through the Belleville Police Service. We're going to be rolling it here. CamSafe is a web-based program that's opened up to the community so that if they have cameras on their property, CCTV, ring type cameras, they'll be able to register those with the police service. And what it does is when officers are investigating crimes, they can log into the program and they'll be able to see where different properties are that have cameras in the community. They'll be able to connect with those people. They can't log in and look directly at their camera footage, but it's just a method so that they can connect with those community members and get access to that vital video footage that helps us solve crimes. So we're hoping to have that out very soon in Owen Sound. We have a couple photographs there in the package. One is our 4 new special constables that we hired. And also on January 24th, we participated in an initiative with Mawikwadong by having a Tree of Hope lit over at their center in remembrance of the Indigenous lives lost and impacted by violence, and also empower people to come forward with information on the missing, murdered women, girls, and two-spirited people. That concludes my reports.
Thank you, Inspector. All right, now moving on to the next item on the agenda. I think Reach is here, so we'll take
It's so, sorry, I'm sitting on my walker in on the Zoom meeting. They have a small recess, so I'm just giving you a call back. It is pretty good. Like I can stand up now and
Okay.
All right. 11:35, so. And moving on to reports from Director of Civilian Service.
I will after those.
Okay,
Record report, we report on bulk record check searches. Those are Martin, those are searches that we do for income through some third-party records checks companies. Our numbers are down a little bit there for based on the year-to-date for 2024. Chief, if you have any comment, I know they're looking at some different options for that to get those numbers up. Executed warrants. We are up over December of 2024. We'll look down a little bit later at the number of arrests. So the first chart shows bulk records checks done with the yearly comparisons. When you look at our executed warrants per month, there's a big spike that happened back in March. That's when our bail compliance warrant apprehension team went into effect, and basically there was quite a backlog of pre-existing warrants that they were able to work on. So it's remained fairly stable for the last number of months of 2024. Number of persons charged per month has been up fairly substantially through November, December, and even now into January. That's just a reflection of how busy we are getting to be. Remainder of the reports talks about the number of custodies transported. That has remained fairly stable. You'll see there's a spike that began to happen around May or June of 2024, and that's when we away from the COVID process of doing the court hearings, and everybody is now, for the most part, going back up to the courthouse. So that's what caused that. You'll see that we had a bit of a spike in January with our special constable hours. That is being driven by a OPP Superior Court homicide jury trial, which requires extra security, as well as some increases in provincial offences court dates. So we've had to up staff to accommodate for that. You will see probably as 2025 progresses with the trials starting up for the ones that happened in 2023. We will likely see higher hours this year than we did last year as a result of having to manage those cases. That's the report from the Director of Civilian Services, unless there's any questions.
okay. Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to report from Director of Corporate Services and Director of Information Technology, Jeff. Anything to?
Sure. So, in January, there were 5,537 incoming 911 calls, representing an average rate of 178 calls per day. The daily rate of incoming 911 calls is up slightly from last month and up by 12% when compared to January of last year. The center transferred 3,800 of the answerable 911 calls and dispatched 1,267 of these 911 calls in January. The average dispatch rate of 911 calls was 40.9 a day in January, down slightly from last month, but up by 11% compared to January of 2024. The center dispatched a total of 5,552 calls for an average dispatch rate of 179 calls per day in January. This is a 4% increase in the monthly volume. Year to date, or compared to last January, the volume of dispatch CAT events is up by 21%. Increases were notable for police calls and dispatching for Grey County Transport. There were 1,411 calls dispatched for the Owen Sound Police Service in January, with an average daily dispatch rate of 45.5 calls per day. OSPS dispatch calls were down slightly from last month, but up by 17% compared to January of last year. And there's a number of graphs there showing the CAD and dispatch calls there for your reference. And I can move on to IT if you like. So the IT section completed the acquisition of Microsoft 365 licensing and has begun the process of the rollout and migrations to end users. This will allow for interoperability within the city and county entities, as well as policing partners throughout Ontario for data sharing, including the bill compliance dashboard. Further, our hosted next-gen 911 solution has continued to progress with completion of the configurations required for testing, onboarding with Bell Canada and our vendors, which has now moved to the certification stage. Significant time was spent researching and developing policing solutions and partnerships both locally and across Ontario. 2 of the IT members completed the last of their advanced training in Microsoft Power BI Analytics for data analysis and processing for the coming months. That's it for IT.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to Jeff as well.
No.
Oh.
So we reinvigorated the rollout of the health and safety committee, mandated, and members are getting trained in terms of references and procedures are being updated for sign off. First aid kits, it was brought that there were a number of different types of first aid kits and some boxes, and there was a bit of a mishmash in some of the cruisers. So a member proposed the idea of getting one standardized first aid kit and getting everything into one box. So that's ongoing now. We've ordered those and they're updated and going to be put into the cruisers. Inspections will be scheduled to take place monthly throughout the building, and has the meeting set for the year. And that's a joint committee between the association and management. Recruitment's obviously an ongoing concern. Our new social media campaign started and will feature interactive polls, allowing drive content in an effort to broaden our reach. There are 2 sergeants and an inspector retiring in the coming months. So Jeff, I'd just like to publicly acknowledge that you've submitted your intention to retire. We're going to miss you significantly. We'll have something more formal in the future, but congratulations on your decision. And well, it's going to be some huge shoes to fill. I'm not sure that anybody's going to fit into them immediately upon stepping into the role, but hopefully they can grow into them the way you have. And I can tell you, it's like losing a right hand, right or left hand if you're ambidextrous. So, but you'll certainly be missed.
Thank you very much, Chief.
3 dispatch trainees started in February. We're modifying a bit of their training plan. Rather than having all the theory and all that at the beginning, we're going to be broken down into modules so they can learn and train and then move into the room and get some of that practical experience and then go back and learn some more things. So that's we've really done a lot of work on the training for dispatch and how to improve it, how to improve our success rates, and hopefully we'll move forward with that. We've also identified another intake for the beginning of the summer. I attended and members attended the Grey County Career Fair on February 20th, last Thursday. Both to look for local interests and opportunities. There are a number of other job fairs and career fairs later this spring that are going to be happening. We're stretching our reach. That we need significant numbers, and we're recruiting, and we have to move beyond just the local area or even the county-wide area in order to meet the needs of the service. So I attended the job fair for several hours Thursday afternoon last week, and there was a significant interest from a number of people in a number of different positions, data and special constables and officers, as well as dispatchers. So we continue to focus on culture, held group sessions with members of Communication Center, create a team charter. We've been unsuccessful in retaining new hires in the last 2 rounds of recruitment, had some other staff members leave for other opportunities. And inadequate staffing negatively affects the team members and the service and getting their time off. So they've been working together to try and identify how to make that a better working environment, and they come up with that team charter in order to set the stage. So that should be rolled out in mid-March, and there are a number of changes during the month of January. The only significant one right now is the resignation of Constable Martin Sabota. And the board has confirmed acceptance of the resignation. That's it for human resources.
Moving on to financial update from.
So, we spent some significant time going over and trying to finalize the 2024 budget, and results prior to this meeting. And, it was finalized with the, city financial and our own financial Jeff Hawk. And it came out that, we were $14,000 under our budget of $8.564 million. So, very close, but there were some variances that probably want to highlight. So in the board variance, there was part-time wages were higher, and that's likely due to the end of negotiations with our contracts. And that was one of the changes for items Department 3000. Full-time and part-time wages were lower because of some vacancies that we held and some unexpected people leaving, as well as the benefits associated with that. Obviously, for every dollar in wage, 30% in benefits, that's also saved. I will point out that our overtime was up slightly as a result of covering some of those vacancies. And then the civilians section, there were some variances. We hired mid-year, we hired a HR position that has been budgeted, but we knew that we were unable to fill our needs and make the decisions to fill all those vacancies without an HR individual. So that's a significant variance in HR. Police information technology, the variance there, there was some lower IT recovery than expected. In the records management side, due to the implementation delays on NG 911, and as well the IT phone lines costs in relation to civilians admin, and that's the cost of running two separate systems due to those NG 911 delays that were really out of our hands. So when you move over to court security under 3,300, you'll see a significant variance, and that relates to special constable wages as mentioned in the court report. The fact that we're covering a lot more in court, and there's been a lot more demand of our members up at courts for court security. So when you add all those variances together, as was mentioned, there's a difference of $14,000 below budget. I was provided prior to the meeting that's available for anybody, and it will be posted as part of the service meeting if there are any questions.
Questions, moving on. Okay, moving on to operating reports from chief and the activity.
Yeah, so took some time off, got away over the holiday and the end of January. Just some significant, just I'll point out some highlights. So started spending some time on the Owen Sound Police Service West Grade discussions. There's several court security meetings and issues that came up. Jeff and I had a meeting with Bright Shores over hospital wait. Excuse me. Over hospital wait times and turnover times. That was actually very successful. Times for 2024 it actually decreased slightly. And our outliers weren't as long, but we still have some concerns about some outliers and times that we spend waiting at the hospital. We came up with a system where we continue to reach out in individual cases if the wait time is what we feel is excessive for the transition, and they will look at each one and determine the cause and hopefully deal with that through some things on their end and learning and opportunities there. We also came up with a process that should there be an extra wait time, and our officers are to reach out and speak to the supervisors there, and they have a member senior staff on call all the time, and if it gets to the point that it's excessive, then they're supposed to reach out and contact the on-call person to determine how to proceed so that it doesn't get into extra length wait time. So that was very productive. meeting, and the fact that they've actually met with us was productive, because the last CEO at the hospital never met with us. So, step in the right direction. I spent significant time in service training dialogue with the chief, both uniform and civilian members, so every in-service training session for our members, both uniform, they're set up as part of their annual training, and our dispatchers. I came in and just did a one-on-one dialogue with all those groups, so that took several, I think there were 9 or 10 different occasions that I set aside time to make sure I did that. Dave and I went down and participated in Royal Canadian Legion Coffee with a Veteran. We've had some discussions with Administrative Attorney General for pre-charge consultation program. That's been ongoing. We've had meetings since that time as well. And basically what that is we're looking at reducing the workload on the front line at the front end, and lowering the number of charges that are just withdrawn after all the work goes through it with the police, and then getting a commitment that if it gets accepted, it gets screened in, then it stays in, it doesn't get withdrawn at the end. So that's a very promising program that we're looking at implementing. We have a follow-up meeting for that this week or next. We've had quite a few meetings on violence prevention, Grey Bruce leadership group, and the Merrim table, which is a high risk domestic violence or gender-based violence table. Just looking at there's been a number of municipalities that have declared partner violence as an epidemic, and looking at changing how we actually deal with that, and looking at risk factors and the response that we have, and how to do a more proactive role. So referring to this high risk table. Just been the university study for the SOS program, and as well as the Tree of Hope OSPSB, the border integrity meetings and updates. So with the changes to the border integrity, just to see exactly where they're putting the money and how they're spending it. That's some of the highlights of the month.
Good. Any questions from anyone? Wonder if you give us maybe a little bit more detail on West Grey, or if there's any information available that you can talk about West Grey.
There really isn't any detail available right now at this time. We're working on a project charter with the city and with municipality West Grey, just to clearly outline what it is that the project's going to look at, how that's going to proceed, and next steps on how to get that moving. So.
And I think this was originally initiated by West Grey, but it was also to talk about administrative and sharing of resources as opposed to a joint police service.
Yeah, so it's not it's looking at efficiencies and opportunities on how to grade or work together in order to define those efficiencies and results, so whatever those results are, what they are, and it's not necessarily looking at a joint municipal police service.
Yeah, and this is precipitated by the additional work that's been created by the CSPA and some of the administrative issues there.
Yes, and additional work created by the CSPA and some of the efficiencies of scale to be realized together.
Okay, good. Any other questions for the chief? Moving on to other items in business, and item number A, annual reports. Like we have a number of are required under the So who do we talk to about being significant missing persons? Dave?
Yeah, so it's a very brief report on missing persons. We started doing this last year. This is in addition to, there's a legislative mandated requirement for a report under the Missing Persons Act, which you'll receive next month. Missing Persons Act just came in and gave us some extra powers that we can use in a missing person case to access things like financial records without warrant. It's not used very frequently, but this is in addition to that. We just want to every year sort of tell you what the missing persons year looked like. We had 131 persons reported missing to us in 2024. They were all located for outstanding missing persons from 2024. The vast majority of the cases are all found in a day or less. In all but 11 cases, it's less than a day. The bulk of the 11 are just over a day, but there was one individual that was located outside of town 57 days later. So. And we also do a little breakdown just to give you some idea of what the age range is: 31 children, 30 teenagers, 49 adults, 21 elderly persons, and 13 persons that would also qualify as vulnerable. Disability or things like that may have contributed to the missing report. So, more questions?
Moving on to water equipment disposal.
Yeah, so that annual report is simply a list of board equipment that's been disposed of. Most of it is computer and technology related items that have become antiquated. The items were most of the materials they're able to recycle. Just simply a list of those items that were disposed over the year. I can move on to firearms.
Sure.
So firearms annual report, the firearms acquired in 2024, we took possession of 9 firearms. Of those, 6 were rifles and 3 were handguns. Of the 9 firearms received, 6 were surrendered for destruction by the owners or family members, and 2 are being held for criminal matters, and 1 was seized in regard to a mental health apprehension. The service currently has 14 total firearms in their possession, consisting of 5 rifles, 8 shotguns, 1 handgun. On April 11th, we used a private service to come and dispose of 75 firearms and other various weapons. They destroy those items for us for a fee. All required reports have been submitted to the Provincial Weapons Enforcement Unit and the RCMP. And I can move on to the 2024 use of force annual report. As a requirement under Ontario regulation, sorry, that's the old regulation of the PSA. A use of force report must be submitted when a member of the police service draws a handgun in the presence of a member of the public, points a firearm at a person, discharges a firearm, uses a weapon on another person, draws and displays a conducted energy weapon to a person with the intention of achieving compliance, or points a CW at a person, or discharges a conducted energy weapon, or uses force on another person that results in an injury requiring medical attention. Modernized use of force report was implemented in 2023 based on amendments to use of force reporting required in regulation 926 at that time, made in November of 2022. And that included several amendments. So getting down to the statistics for Owen Sound, there were 31 use of force reports submitted in 2024 involving 25 unique incidents, 24 unique persons, and 3 animals. The number of subjects involved in any one incident varied from 0 to 4. This is relatively consistent with 2023 with 24 persons involved that required officers to use reportable force. With 18,886 occurrences dispatched for the Owen Sound Police in 2024, the use of force reported in 25 incidents represents 0.1% of all events dispatched. So 0.1% of events there was force used. Officers are trained in various types of force and de-escalation techniques such as communication, containment, teamwork, repositioning, and distance. for race-related and identity-based data collection. Officers' perception of a person's race involved in the use of force events was recorded as white 17 times, Middle Eastern 1 time, and Indigenous 2 times during the year. Of the 24 individuals described in the use of force reports, 3 subjects were perceived as being male 20 times and female 4 times. A conducted energy weapon known to many people as a taser was drawn, displayed, pointed, and or discharged 19 times as compared to 14 times in 2023. A firearm was reported drawn, pointed, and or discharged 13 times in 2024 compared to 14 in 2023. And the incidents involved in 2024 were 3 animal complaint incidents in which the firearm was discharged on an animal only, 1 incident where the officer drew a firearm in clearing an unknown area where no subject was present, 3 incidents in which an officer and 1 subject, 3 incidents each with 1 officer and 1 subject, 4 incidents where multiple officers responded to deal with 1 subject, and 1 incident which involved multiple subjects being present. And there's a chart included there for your reference with the various statistics. That concludes use of force report.
And just one item to point out, and that's that, well, when the total number of occurrences and 25 incidents representing 0.1% of all events. Our officers do a great job of not using force and not having to use force. And the majority, like I said, 99.9% of the time, there is no fault. Like that.
What? Moving on to
Joint forces.
JFO.
So historically, we've provided this annual report. Typically, a joint forces operation is considered to be one where there's a joint forces agreement that's done between 2 services. And they typically are large projects. We do deal with them very infrequently here. In fact, not in 2024, but what we do provide is just a little bit of background on some of the things that we do with other services here locally and outside, just to give you some idea of the interaction between some of our services. One of our CIB officers assisted the Alberta RCMP with regard to sexual assault. That resulted in charges out there. Interestingly, we just got a subpoena for that officer yesterday that looks like he's got to go to Red Deer, Alberta in October to testify in that case. So hoping that can be done remotely, but it doesn't appear to be that on subpoena right now. OPP, we assisted OPP with a swatting incident that involved Owen Sound City Council on April 2nd. The ROPE team, or the Repeat Offender Parole Enforcement Team, was here in June when we were assisted in locating a 59-year-old Owen Sound male. We had removed Ford here, going to 3 different locations on the city on June 5th, which involves our criminal investigations branch working with the OPP's Premier Protection Unit. Assisted the OPP with a stolen vehicle that resulted in a ground search and apprehension of subject in July. Large investigation with the York Regional Police Major Fraud Unit also in July, led to charges. A 77-year-old almost charged with fraud over 5,000. Sudden and death investigation of 23-year-old male that occurred in the harbor, July 27th. We assisted the OPP with that. The body of a deceased male moved from Georgian Bay, not deemed to be suspicious. In August, Toronto Police Service drug investigation. We assisted with 67-year-old male charged and arrested by CIB members. And finally, in October, there was an assistance with North York and Uxbridge because of some alleged assaults that occurred down in those locations. So Toronto Police and Durham Regional Police were tasked with assisting that. So just an idea of some of the things that we deal with on a year-to-year basis with other services.
Any questions for Inspector Bishop? Moving on to court security.
Sure. So every year there's an annual kind of recap for court security. That we're responsible for as a result of the Policing Act. The municipality of jurisdictions in charge of police are responsible for court security. We meet quarterly. I participate in those as well, and then we also have other meetings if there are issues. And there have been no issues. There were no arrests, or there were no escapes, no issues in regards to court security. We deal with everything on a proactive basis, so knowing who's coming and what's coming up, plans are made to address specific cases coming before the courts. So the court security and demand was up as a result of several significant incidents and some large homicide trials, and coming back with more people in the courts, but there were no issues in 2024.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item B, OAPSB 2025 AGM sponsorship. Last year we were sub-sponsor at the OAPSB 2024 Spring Conference, and as a silver sponsor, received recognition as a silver sponsor during the conference on different posters and billboards, as well as on the OAPSB website. I'd like to recommend that we do the same this year and donate $1,000 to the OAPSB Spring Conference. And could I have a motion for that donation?
Yes,
Brian, thank you. I think Bev, I heard you second that in the background.
yes, for sure.
Thank you. All in favor? Carry. 2025 budget. I think this is just a cleanup item. It's confirmed that the budget has been approved by the board and city council and will now be posted on the website as required under the CSPA. And so could I have a motion to post our budget 2025 budget on the website for all to see? Thank you, Carol. Brian, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next item is the electronic board book. I think we spoke briefly about this at our January meeting. The background, Carol, before we used to have a binder with paper, and it was not always up to date. So we looked at that, Carol and I looked at it. She's been working hard at putting together electronic board book available to all members. Things that would be included initially in this book would be the 2025 Hometown Police Board meeting dates, a link to the most current version of the CSPA. And I say current because there has been at least one change on December 4th, 2024 from the original posting date of April of 2024. Also, we provide you with OAPSB website and login instructions, as well as instructions for the mobile app and the OSP database for full member contact information. Also provide you information with Ontario Regulation 392/23, which is adequate and effective policing. Also, the Ontario Regulation 408/23, which is a code of conduct for police service board members. Also provide a OSP organizational chart. And as you can imagine, that will probably be updated more frequently than it was in the past when it was paper. So we'll just have to make sure that Wendy and Kayla are talking on changes happen. Also provide a direct link to the Hometown Police Service Board's bylaws and policies. They are on our website, but it might be easier just for as board members to have their own area to go to. Being the board book will now be electronic, it'll be much easier to add or delete items rather than distributing paper and trying to have everybody inserted into the file in your board binder and make sure everybody's on the same page, as it were. Feel free, if there's anything else that you'd like to add to this electronic board book that you would think would be beneficial, let Kayla or myself know and take a look at it and see how that can be administered and managed on the system. Kayla, do you have any update on the truck board book? I know you were looking at where it was going to be located and how we would access it.
Still looking.
Still looking?
Yep, waiting on answers. So hopefully by the March meeting, I'll have more of an update.
I think you were saying that there's one option that's on the website that we have currently, but in a separate area. We could do that, but it would be an extra cost to that, and you were exploring what those
That's
extra
correct.
costs would be. Or looking at putting it on Google account or something like Google.
Something with our IT internally, but that's still waiting to hear how, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Kayla will be working on that in the background, and we'll have more to report, I think, on our March meeting. Just a quick update on our policies. Dave Preston, who's our author for our policies. We met on February 4th to finalize the policies that we approved at our December meeting. David finalized them by taking it to the blue highlighting, and which showed areas that were reflective of the administrative changes as a result of the CSPA, and some yellow highlighted areas indicating additions specifically to General Policy 003 on board governance. Over the next few days, I think Kayla and I will be working on posting those to the public website and signing them electronically or electronically, I hope.
Yes.
Few easier. I remember the first time we did them, we did 91 policies and we were writer's cramp by the end after we signed them all. Anyways, that's where we at with the policies. Moving on to item F, Isaac Sweeting has made an application to renew their application for a taxi driver's license. And at this point in time, I think we were all reviewed it. It was included one package. And if I could have a motion to approve that renewal, and Brian, I think you said that. Carol seconded it. Thank you. All in favor? Great. The other item that we have is a private transportation company application from a company called Tripsy Ad Hoc Technologies. Again, you had to could review that in the board package, and if there's no questions, then Carol, motion for that. Thank you. And then Bev, if I could have a seconder for that. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. And lastly, we have a tax rebroker application for a company called BCAP 5 for Mr. Castleman. And I think you all had an opportunity to review that. And moving on, I think Bev, I think you had a motion to support that application. And second, Brian, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And moving on to there was an operations plan progress update. Was anyone going to present that, or just is for information purposes only? I don't care.
No.
Okay.
Well, Margot does an awful lot of work and then can't go unrecognized on the operations plan and the amount and keeping us on track and moving forward. So I don't want that to go unrecognized in this group. But in 2023, the board approved the 23 to 26 operations plan. It included 14 goals and 50 actions within the four boundaries of community safety, community well-being, our members, and sustainability. There are champions for each of those locations, and this is the fourth 6-month progress report, obviously the end of the second year, representing a midway point of the plan. And at this point, 4 actions have been completed. One is to be initiated later this year, and the other 45 or 90% are all in progress. So there's been an awful lot of work being done on all those. There are tremendous efforts going on throughout the service. I'll just bring out a few of the highlights. The SECC, the Sound Emergency Communication Center, we'll talk a lot in acronyms here within the building. So I just want to, for Councilor Merton, who's just joining us for our first meeting, the OSPSB is the Sound Emergency Communication Center. That's the dispatch side of the business, dispatch and IT. And so they had the grand opening of the newly renovated center in October. And that completes the action to relocate that group to a modern functional workspace that better supports emergency dispatch needs. That was a significant investment in our business. Many other initiatives about about a sustainable communication center, regular block training for dispatchers, standard operating procedures, revised call subtypes were all implemented in December 24, and partnership formalized in the fall of 2024 with but it's formalized, it's not yet completed, but with Sarnia Police about a backup site for each other, reciprocal base. We're looking to advocate for a sustainable police funding model, the city of Owen Sound and Great County. And the review of the court needs and costs will be part of the ongoing practices that was done throughout the year in 2024. We leverage grant funding from the ministry to support officers, and the information and the feedback about the visibility in the high priority areas such as the river district has been very good. When we're able to leave the core officers in their role and not just responding to calls for service due to staffing issues. Part-time officers continue to conduct high visibility foot and bike patrols and assist with special events, attending, hosting, and promoting communities. The community services officer, Jason Frank, just a lot of outreach in that area. Mobile Ministries enhanced mobile crisis response team grant. A second CMHA worker was added to the team. That was a highlight from last year, and it was approved again for this year. And we've got a grant forward with the ministry that we are yet awaiting results for to keep that second person in place. Victim services moved into an office space here at the Owen Sound Police Service, increasing opportunities for referrals and efficiencies, and spending time within the building again, which was nice to see. They've been here prior to COVID, but then had not had an actual presence within the building since COVID began. We arranged civilian members block training with sworn members for the first time in the fall of 2024, and their plans are underway to do that again this fall. Strategic recruitment plan has been developed. Career fairs are booked, and people reaching out to social media to assist with long-term recruitment and retention of members. And a new efficiency committee was formed in October 2024 to address issues and processes across the service that may be unnecessary, inefficient, or inconsistent, or missing. So representatives from across the service are now meeting monthly and looking at those efficiencies. So basically, I just wanted to provide you with a 6-month update or mid-cycle update of the plan and how we are moving your requests for actions. Operational piece.
Great, thank you. Any questions of the chief on that part? No, good. Bev, any questions?
No, but just excellent. Thank you.
Moving on to item J, last item. This was I added at the beginning of the meeting. It's regarding our April 30th meeting date. I think we're in a conflict with small and mid.
They've moved it, but it's a conflict with another meeting where I have to attend, so it still doesn't change factors.
Okay. All right, so what we're proposing then is to change the April 30th date to a week earlier on April 23rd, if that works for everyone's calendar. And we sent out a new updated meeting date, so you could add that to your calendar. If there's any problems with that, please let me know. Try and find a different date.
April 23rd,
Yes.
that works for me.
And having completed all the items on the agenda, I terminate public meeting at 11:21. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. And Bev, we'll see you on